Welcome to Pacific Mystery School, the heart of the Western mystery tradition, where we are studying the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, the Tarot, and here we go into the Chariot, which is our subject for today. So the Chariot comes along bearing a message, something that is going to shift our consciousness theoretically. It is mysterious in some ways as it awakens our field of consciousness. And I'd like to start with the meditation out of Tarot of the Spirit, which is as mysterious as the Chariot itself. And what this really is it's a list of key words that belong to this place, this position that we call the Chariot. The Chariot, fence, high intelligence in the house of influence, charioteer, whose face I seek but cannot know, whose name I know but cannot form, descending through raining fence of blood and sea and blood, through the inner self, ignorance, power, force, and corpse, to conscious mind, holding in your empty hands the amethyst gift of wisdom. I can nearly hear your call, a whisper through the veil. Charioteer speaks in tongues, awakening fields of consciousness, the preserving, protecting power of words, new words as yet unsaid, words that manifest and edge through the bony fence, encasing matters of heart, words that dart through pillars from the middle of the soul. The strength of will is measured by the will to let the force of life manifest unreined. The strength of will is hearing through the water well enough to speak the secret of the flame. That is part of the mystery of the Chariot. The Chariot is the path of inner transformation. It is a birth canal between worlds, the worlds of the unmanifest and the worlds of manifestation. It signifies breaking out of old definitions of self, the old definitions of ourselves, redefining and refining energies. And so it becomes a vehicle for expression, ultimately, for the expression of the human personality. In a sense, the Chariot is about right communion. It is about becoming the master of life expression and the idea of renewing the self at will. In right communion, you are the creative force. You are the activation of will. And this is the will to discover, the will to explore. Attunement is the secret. And the question for us is, what is worth attuning to? The Chariot, when you place it on the Tree of Life, you see that it crosses the abyss. And the abyss is a place that we could fall into. And that abyss becomes like a border. It's a border between worlds. In the abyss, we could experience a loss of memory. Borders are very interesting places because in Borderlands, you get mixtures of energies that are coming from both sides and then come into whole new ways of knowing, whole new ways of realizing rise up in Borderlands. And the Chariot has to do with Borderlands and crossing Borderlands. And so we can apply this to a lot of different areas in our lives or in life itself. Just to think about where are the Borderlands and what is going on, because the Borderlands in a way are a zone of creativity. The mystery of the Chariot has to do with hearing through the water, as they say, well enough to speak the secret of the flame. And the flame is the spirit that enlivens everything. It's like the core essence, the core truth. It's called the amethyst wisdom with regard to the Chariot. And in the Chariot, we are journeying for and toward this amethyst wisdom. This is a journey seeking the name and the power of your gift. A message wants to come through at the Chariot. This is a message about the future of your personality, your role, your niche or niche on the planet. This is a gift of growth. But it's hard to hear because the Chariot speaks in tongues. The charioteer speaks in tongues. And these tongues awaken fields of consciousness within ourselves. We hear words, or we're reaching for words. Sometimes I feel like it is hearing something that doesn't come in the form of words, but it comes in dreams, it comes in images, it comes in a kind of a vague feeling about things that eventually can be translated into words. Some of it is waiting for a translation, waiting for that moment of translation. Like I feel this way with a lot of the work that I do. I'm sensing something and I'm trying to translate it, and I can't even understand what I'm hearing, what I'm trying to hear. But then I try to find language. I try to language it. I try to hear the words. And then when I do, I can move into this place of the preserving and protecting power of words. The words have the power to name what it is we're searching for, the name and the power of your gift. This becomes something you can share with others. Symbols would be part of that energy as well. They're coming through the veil. The veil itself becomes a symbol. It's a symbol of something that we can open, possibly, or something that can open to us, or it's also something that can block us. The veil represents the mystery. But it is not the mystery, okay? The mystery is like something that is beyond and behind. In the Chariot, the body becomes the vehicle for our action. The Chariot is like the body. Traditionally, it's thought of as a vehicle, but I have to say, I feel it's not like a vehicle that we inhabit so much as more like a vehicle we are. It's a vehicle we be. We are being this vehicle. It's called intelligence in the house of influence. And in this place, I'm going to return to this intelligence of the house of influence, or in the house of influence. In this place, we are the act, we are the actor, and we are the means of action. And we are working within fields of activity. And inside these fields of activity, we are continually framing our world? Like, how are we going to frame it? How will we frame it, and then how will we apply this knowledge? How will we apply the message we are receiving to a field of activity? And here requires for us the effective use of words and deeds and symbols, because we're inside a zone of consciousness and we are creating at the same time zones of consciousness within this place. So to return back to the idea of Kabbalah for a moment, the word Kabbalah means to receive. It's a body of universal law that is related to the past, the present, and the future. And it is summarized, in a sense, by this diagram, the tree of life. The tree of life is a diagram that we can work with in a step-by-step basis. And then what we discover as we're working with the tree of life is the Kabbalah. That's the mystical knowledge. So the tree of life is a process or a pattern that we are working with. And it's been passed down. This particular tree of life and the way it is right now has been passed down for at least 600 years through the mystery schools. And it goes far, far beyond that, going back in time. But just the present version we know is at least 600 years old. It's been passed down underground to teach direct connection with the sacred. Okay, and then where we are on the tree of life is at the chariot, which fits on the tree of life, and it fits in between sphere number 3 and sphere number 5, and it crosses the abyss between sphere 3 and sphere 5 on the tree of life. So the chariot moves right over the abyss. The secret name of the chariot is the child of the powers of the waters, or Lord of the triumph of light. Okay, why do you think it would be called child of the powers of the waters if you look at the diagram of the tree of life? Do you have any idea? Anybody? No? It's okay if you don't. Okay, I'll just give you an idea. It's because sphere number 3 is what?
Creativity. Creation, form.
Yeah, creation, form, and it also the sphere of Water Mother, the sphere of the Mother, the sphere of the cosmic sea, and the cosmic sea is the sphere of the knowledge that has been, is, and shall be. It's a memory that is contained in the sea. And then if you say Lord of the triumph of light, the idea of Lord of the triumph of light means that throughout the sea the sea is glittering with illumination, and the illumination is the essence of the life force itself. Okay, I'm not personally, I'm not thrilled with the word Lord that is in there. This has been passed down, but I like the idea of the essence of the triumph of light. So child of the powers of the waters and essence of the triumph of light. So that is path 18, it's called, the chariot, and it's key number 7. The chariot becomes a place that is like a birth canal into form. This is the spiritual activity of manifestation that connects the 3 and the 5. So if we go from the 3 to the 5, and we imagine the path going that way, it moves us from the unmanifest to the manifest. And the reason for that is because the abyss, which the chariot crosses, separates the world of the unmanifest from the manifest, it is said. So when we move into manifestation, we'll move into manifestation via this pathway, which becomes like a birth canal. If we just imagine that we are in the world of manifestation, it can also be a channel that opens communication between worlds into the world of the unmanifest. Or if we're in the world of the unmanifest, we could say it also opens a channel of communication between the unmanifest and the manifest, right? So it can be a channel of communication, and it can also be a channel that we travel as we are becoming manifest. So they say that this path crosses the waters of form. It becomes the child of the powers of the waters, and it is a path that begins to focus the almost like the congealing of spirit into a form, and then that form contains an impending individuality. And that impending individuality is who we become. And that impending individuality has been evolving from the beginning of this universe, through things breaking down and then recongealing, break down, recongealing, and then we're born in our current form. Then our goal becomes to bridge the abyss with our individuality, our personality, and to connect with our spiritual origins on the other side, so to speak, of the abyss. Okay, and even as I say that, I have to say, okay, well, this sounds a little like proof by cartoon. The tree of life is like proof by cartoon, because I'm using this language that even the language itself, in a sense, is suspect. But there is something that we do have a longing inside of ourselves to connect with a much bigger picture, where we came from, where we're going, and the chariot represents all of that, our spiritual origins. What are our spiritual origins? Okay. So from the 3 to the 5, sphere 3 to sphere 5, we are crossing into being. And we cross into being via this path number 7, the chariot. So let's go into the idea of the 7 for a minute. Okay, so the 7, okay, what do you think of when you think of 7? Just 7. Anybody? Any ideas? Transmutation. Yeah, definitely. 7, a place of transmutation. Anything else that you think of when you think of the 7?
3 plus 4.
3 plus 4. Well, 3 being
creativity,
and 4 being stability, creativity, and stability. Okay, that can relate to the 7, because it is 3 plus 4. But we could also do a 5 plus 2 and a 1 plus 6. But yeah.
Seeker.
Okay, but
Seeker.
What was that?
Seeker.
Oh, seeker. Right. 7 is a place of the vision quest energies, and it's the place of being the seeker. And it is the place of transmutation after you've been through all the lessons of the 1 through 6. Okay, so the chariot is major arcana number 7. It's called or considered to be the gateway to the mysteries. It's on the female pillar of the tree of life between the 3 and the 5. And it also is connected with the 4 7s in the 4 suits, because all of those 4 7s are also about transmutation and the vision quest, right? So the 7 of fire, it's called courage, and it's about finding your own individual spiritual sensibilities and having the courage to express that. That's part of the chariot. In the water, 7 of water insight, also about finding our own spiritual sensibilities, but in a slightly different mode. Water is the place where we can move into sloshing about, into that kind of place of depression, in that place where we're trying to find our way, we're not really clear what's happening. That's when we gain all the insights. So the card is called insight, and once we have the insight, we're lifted out of the place, which is like a potential abyss. Then the 7 of wind, many tongues, this has to do with not being able to hear each other. So eventually what we come up with through communication is the language of the future, which also has something to do with the Chariot, because we're not going to return to the language of the past. It's gone. It's gone, and so we will be not resurrecting, but I like to use this word that I made up and I don't know why it is not in the dictionary. Surrection. The surrection of the new. Not resurrection, but surrection. Birthing it, bringing it up, finding the way, translating, bringing it up, bringing it down, bringing it out, letting it be born, allowing it to be born, allowing it to emerge. Okay, and then moving forward with that. That has something to do with the seven of wind. When we're in that place, which is sort of like the Tower of Babel, and we're not able to connect. Okay, let's get together around the idea of what could happen out of this. That card, by the way, is Aquarius, the energy of Aquarius, and that's about new thought. Seeking the new ways that we can come together. Okay, and then we have the seven of earth, the garden. Okay, that's all about imagining a new future for ourselves, imagining our new garden, and then stepping into it. So all of these sevens are involved in the vision quest that the Chariot also is involved in. And sometimes the way we get there, the Chariot is about transportation. It's like it's moving us, from one place to another. And so one way that we can get there is through transportation, and that means like deep meditation, moving inside of it, moving ourselves into trance, moving ourselves into meditation, and to get a broader download or something like that. And it's also transportation out of low emotional tides, low emotional places, and we want to begin to move out of that. So the Chariot crosses from the 3 to 5. It also crosses from the 5 to the 3. Okay, so 5 to the 3. So when you think of the 5s, what do you think of? Crisis. Yeah, definitely a space of crisis, a space of difficulty. So the 4 5s, the 5 of fire is a spiritual struggle. The 5 of water is essentially like broken heart. The 5 of wind or air is fear, being in a mental state of fear. And then the 5 of earth is being in a low point physically. And that physical low point could be anything. It could be financial loss of shelter. It could be illness. And, in the worst cases, death. I mean, it's all of the stuff that is very, very difficult for us. So when we look at the 5 on the tree of life, we see the Chariot is not the only way out of the 5, but the Chariot's one of the ways out of the 5. It goes to the 3. Another way out goes to the 4, and that's the 4 is where we rebalance the energy. Another way out is that's the path of strength, by the way, that goes to the 4. Another way out is the path of the hanged man, and that's like going into a deep meditation, and that leads to number 8, which is about the breakthrough and illumination. That's the power of symbolization. So if you're feeling that sense of malaise, you can imagine it as going into an intentional meditation, and eventually there's going to be the big aha, this is what it's about. Another path from the 5 out is the path of karma, which leads us straight into the number 6. And I don't want to go into this right now, but I'm going to say that the 6 is the place we want to live in and from. That path of karma, that's where we ask all these questions. Is there anything I could do differently, could have done differently, would do differently in the future? What do I want to happen? How will I affect that? Those are all these questions that we ask on the path of karma. And that leads us into the 6. Okay, it may be that none of those paths are available to us in any given moment. The path that might be available for us when we're in the 5 is the path of the Chariot, which leads straight into the 3, which is the place of the power of the divine feminine, the water mother. Okay, so one of the things that we can do if we're really in dire straits is call upon the divine mother, essentially to comfort us, whatever that means, to hold us, to comfort us, to enwrap us in that holy state or something like that. And I think of this in some ways, it's like has something to do with something like the power of meditation, the power of prayer, but to call in a very specific kind of cradling energy, for lack of a better word. And so that's one of the most important pieces of this path, is it can connect us with that, with those energies. Okay, those energies of the mothers. The mothers live, the mother, and really there's only one, the water mother, and she branches out into the other three suits, and she lives in or around that sphere number 3. So I also want to point out right now as well that we're talking about the 5 and the chariot being a path, in a sense, out of the 5, or at least a meditational path where we can call in maybe the power of the divine or the divine feminine or the sacred to come across the abyss and help us, or at least comfort us. Okay, but also interesting to note that numerologically the tower is connected with the chariot. So the tower is path number 16, and 1 plus 6 is 7. 1 plus 6 is 7, right? And so, but the number 16 is where the structures that we know and the structures we understand, and including structures of personality, start to come down, or they're collapsing, or they're falling, or something like that, and things are breaking apart. Things as we know are breaking apart. Okay, so what can come out of this, or what we can turn our attention toward, is the chariot. Okay, what about some movement? How can we start movement out of this place of the tower? So that when you see the chariot, in a sense, the tower is behind the chariot in the major arcana. So those two are connected. So we see that the chariot is connected with a number of cards. It's connected with the 5s because it moves us out of the 5s. It's connected with the mother and the mothers because it moves us through that space. It's connected with the 5s because we're often going to encounter the chariot when we're in a space of the 5s. Okay, and another note about the 3s, connecting to the 3s. The 3s are a space of creativity. So when things get bad, when the tower falls, when things are crumbling, when they're all moving apart, we can move ourselves via the chariot into a place of creativity within ourselves. That's creativity and birth, that birthing space of the 3s. So, 3 of fire is moving on the spiritual path. 3 of water is moving on the path of love. 3 of wind is realizing we are in a rite of passage, and there is going to be no turning back to the way we once knew things to be. So we're going to go forward. The 3s are all about going forward. And then the 3 of earth works. That we engineer it, we create it, we make it work. So that's all connected with the chariot, and those are spaces that we can move into. The chariot is, in a sense, it's about a journey. So traditional fortune telling, this is always where I would picture the fortune teller drawing this card, the chariot, and she says to you, my dear, you are going on a journey. That's the chariot. So it's like, okay, all right, where are we going to go? We're going to go on a journey. Which brings to mind Rumi. I love this quote. And then I changed it. I love the quote, then I changed it, right? The quote from Rumi is, journeys bring power and love back into you. If you can't go somewhere, travel in the passageways of your mind. And for me, it's like, okay, yeah, journeys bring power and love back into you. If you can't go somewhere, travel in the passageways of your consciousness. And so when you're deep in that space, that space of contemplation, where are we going to journey to, and how are we going to activate it, and how are we going to move it? Okay, the Hebrew letter associated with the chariot is called Keth, Cheth, Keth. And what it means is it means fence, and it also means field. And basically it designates an area. It's like it creates an area. So the chariot is like a bounded area, thus the vehicle. So it's like a vehicle, a bounded area. It the astrology is Cancer, and so sometimes it's also seen like a crab in a shell. And the shell creates a space, like the space for the crab to be in. It's like a womb or an enclosure. And here we can say that form acts as a boundary. But in truth, the boundary, like the boundary of our bodies or the boundary of the bus in which we will travel across the country or something like that, that's like the bounded area. But in truth, that bounded area need not be limiting. The limitation comes from our own selves. The field of limitation, let's put it this way, really we are only limited by our imagination, by the limits that we put on our imagination. Let's talk about the vehicle for a moment, this idea of the body as a vehicle of spirit, the personality as a vehicle of expression, or consciousness as a vehicle for expansion. It could be said that we occupy many bodies at once. We have a spiritual body, we have a physical body. These bodies range from ethereal to dense, and we are all that. Each body is built up, they say, around a quote, the Tibetans say, I like this idea, that the body is built up around a permanent atom or a spiritual gene. And this spiritual gene holds the memory of all past incarnations, all past, all present, all future, and that we actually may retain imprints of previous entities that we have been, perhaps, and then also, by the way, in the whole Tibetan philosophy with the spiritual gene, the whole idea is that spiritual gene contains everything that we learn in our incarnation, but in more of a symbolic form, everything that we learn to value. And so if we focus on that and process with that, and in the end, that all of that goes into the spiritual gene, and then it's going to come back with on the next level, where we retain that if we focus on it. I like that idea. I don't know if it's true, but I like it, and it's appealing to me that there would be something that continues. We do know everything's going to disintegrate, so to speak, and then get recombined and then come back together. So we definitely know that. That is the way that the universe works. Okay, so the chariot is the path of remembrance. Remembering who we are, remembering where we're going. And I said before, it's called, the intelligence of the chariot is called the intelligence of the house of influence. House of influence. The chariot, in being a bound place, is also called a house of influence. And we are the chariot right now. Our bodies are the chariot. The way we move about is the chariot. And so we become the house of influence, where it seems as if, here's the mystery, it seems as if form is a limitation, but I just mentioned this a minute ago, but it's not. Our form itself need not be a limitation. The form can be a protection for us, and it can create a field of activity in which the life force or the force of spirit resides. New force for us is going to dissolve old form And this is the creative process. And you are the creative force. The Chariot is the place as number 7 that opens up the hidden senses. And these hidden senses for us can be opened up through all kinds of meditations, regressions, past life regressions, something opens, progressions, which I was doing for a while, and I really like to do that. I forgot about it. Progressions. Instead of a regression, you can do a progression with meditation into the future. And that is a very interesting thing to experience. This intelligence of the house of influence opens up when we have spiritual encounters with guides. It opens up when we have Kundalini experiences. We find ourselves floating in the cosmic sea. We hear voices, we hear sounds, we hear music, we experience colors and art. We have visions. But through that is this, quote, danger of falling into the abyss. And in the abyss, we're going to have to find our way out, just like with the priestess, as we would have to do with the priestess. But that's where we're going to learn so much. All of the things we're going to be learning are going to be set in motion by our imagination. That's number 1. Or we could say, where do these things come from? Where do they emerge from? Well, they may be emerging from our imagination itself. Because what is the imagination anyway? I mean, we don't even know what it is. It is the greatest mystery. What is our imagination, right? So just to use our imagination when there are gaps, when we are experiencing these gaps, these lacunae, gaps in our knowledge, gaps in what we think we know. All right, let's fill it in with our imagination. Let's actually begin by making it up. That is one place to start. Let's just make it up. And then once we begin by making it up, we can actually step into it. Some of what we receive may be genetic memory that's already contained in our bodies, in our very DNA, in the genes of our very genes. Thousands of symbolic coded messages that already exist in every single cell of our body. Our DNA strands. Our DNA. Okay, and then somehow even through our DNA or through our imagination, we can do something that we could call tapping the flow of the cosmic sea. That would be related to the number 3, which some might call something like immersion in the collective unconscious or collective consciousness. And this is like a pool of exhaustless information that is generated from all that is, all that has been, and all that ever shall be. So we could start with the vehicle of ourselves, but as I said, but the form is not a limitation to our consciousness. It need not be a limitation to our consciousness. So in this place, we could develop like an empathy or a sympathy with all that is, and this is where our so-called psychic powers would come alive. And psychic, all psyche means, all it means is soul, right? Soul. Psyche means soul. Okay, so if we tap that field, we'll call it the field, tapping the field, we're essentially tapping the soul of the cosmos. That's the way I look at it. And then we're awakening to that. We are all cosmically attuned if we wish to be. We are all psychic. We just tap the energies. All we have to do is tap the energies. And we can do it if we remember to do it. So it may even become like a practice. We're tapping this field of universal mind, whatever that is, the soul of all. We're feeling it through maybe some kind of vibration or some kind of emanations that come to us from animate and inanimate, from the living maybe, from the dead and from the yet to be. And this is what the chariot is all about, is tapping these energies. And then what about reincarnation? Well, maybe, who knows, the body could be viewed as a temporary house inhabited by some kind of mind or spirit, and the spirit passes through lives and body after body after body. Maybe. We don't know. So, but there is a way in which, through the body, we can achieve oneness with the universal life force, and that we are not separate. Okay, let's talk about the symbolism on the card for a minute. Okay, what leaps out at the card, on the card when you look at it? Anything first impression?
The driver's veiled.
The driver is veiled. Okay, good point. Okay, does that veil look like anything you've seen before?
Yeah, the high priestess.
Okay, exactly. It's got the same pattern on it as the high priestess. It's the colors, that blue, that purple, same pattern as the high priestess. So you could say, who's driving the chariot? Well, you could say, oh, the high priestess is driving the chariot. So that's an interesting observation. What else leaps out? Anything else?
Well, of course, we've got the cube that's now the chariot.
The cube, which now becomes the chariot. And the cube, that's a repeating symbol that goes through the cards. It's actually an altar. And it is also I'm looking at it upside down right now myself. So it's an altar, but we have identified before that it's also the pattern associated with the Akashic records that appear in the hands of the priestess, appear as a scroll underneath the empress. And I just saw this for the first time. I'm looking at an enlarged version. I'm looking at it upside down, and I did not realize that on the top of that cube is all the way across the top. If you look at it, it's secret writing.
Oh.
It's the first time I've ever seen it.
O-H. Oh, yeah, I see that.
I'll just say a note about my mom. My mother painted this card. I'm amazed at what she painted. And I do remember that before she painted the tarot, maybe 10 years before she painted the tarot, she did a whole series of paintings of secret writing.
Oh.
Yeah, it just came back to me. I just remembered these huge paintings of secret writing. It was almost like she was waiting for it to come through.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that. Okay, what else do you see on this card? Anything else that leaps out? There's no steering wheel.
No steering wheels, so the hand positions.
So they're blind and they have no steering wheel.
Blind and no steering wheel. Okay. And this could be that the chariot is so, the charioteer is so adept, she doesn't need a steering wheel. Now, that's very, very masculine looking hands there. But with the priestess running the vehicle, we have a very androgynous kind of character, even though it's very muscular kind of character. And what we discover in Tarot of the Spirit is a lot of the figures appearing in the major arcana are very androgynous figures. Yeah, so, okay, also the wheels are not on the chariot. Looks like it's going nowhere, right? There aren't any wheels on the bottom of the vehicle, so to speak. The chariot, the wheels are actually on the pillars, right? So the wheels and the movement is going to be created perhaps by understanding the pillars and how those pillars work together. Also on the pillars, we see the symbol for Cancer appearing on both pillars. And Cancer, one of the things that comes to me about Cancer is about nourishment of the vehicle, and it could be the home too. The Cancer is the home, right? Like I mentioned the crab earlier, right? In the shell. Okay, so that's the symbol for Cancer, but the shell is like a home, right? Being inside that home and then being nourished inside that home. Then we see sphinxes. the sphinxes are the representations of the great mystery. And so a great mystery is afoot here. And they look like statues, but they're like statues that could come alive at any time. Also, there's this interesting symbol on the bottom, which looks like a Masonic symbol. So what that symbol is those are the alchemical symbols for, well, the downward pointed triangle with a line through it is the alchemical symbol for earth. Then the upward pointed triangle with a line through it is the alchemical symbol for air. The upward pointed triangle that is empty in the middle is the symbol for fire. And the downward pointed triangle, which would be empty in the middle, is a symbol for water. But inside that we see the Hebrew letter Kaf painted, and that is the symbol for the chariot itself that appears inside the water. We also see a diamond in the middle of that symbolism, and that represents the diamond sun aspect of which is a repeating symbol throughout the Tarot of the Spirit, which came from the harmonic convergence. I'm sorry for another time. And we see the diamond also on the charioteer's chest with a cross of equal arms in the middle. So the diamond represents higher consciousness, and the cross of equal arms represents essentially the fire, the water, the air, and the earth moving together. One other note on this card is you see the V.T in the middle. Okay, when you have a dot in the middle of a word instead of at the end of a word, it means it can be read in both directions. And so if we read it backwards, TV, it is the Tao, like T-A-U, Tav, or Tao, and that means the mark. Once you understand this card, you have hit the mark. And we see this repeating in the universe, this symbol too. Okay, and I'm going to point out that traditionally the chariot was called the signature card for the tarot, and many tarot artists in the past signed the deck on this particular card. And so this is where my mother signed the card. VT are her birth initials. And I don't think I can tell you her birth name on the... Okay, I will. Her birth name was Verna Tanland, a far, far cry from the name she goes by today. Okay, so Joyce Eakins was the name that evolved as happens during our incarnation, where these different kinds of names evolve for us, for a lot of people. But those were her birth initials. And this in particular is related to her father, because her father, his name, I can tell this. I think I can tell this. If I can't, I don't know who I'm offending. Her father's name was Vernon Tanland, and he was a Mason. And he was the one from whom, when he died, I inherited all of his Masonic materials and everything, which I know set me. And I was a girl, you know? Although I knew what I was in here, I wasn't that young. It was all given to me, including his Masonic apron, which was supposed to be burned or buried with the body. So I had all that. It was all given to me. And so, because the way that we entered the door of Kabbalah was through Masonry, through the Masonic path. And so that a lot of the imagery can be seen throughout the deck. Okay, and so I'll also point out that my grandfather had also that there was Sephardic Judaism in the lineage, and the Sephardic Jews were the keepers of Kabbalah. So all of this stuff gets all mixed up because it gets it gets dispersed, and then it comes back together and dispersed and every time it comes back together, it comes back together in a new way, because as we receive through our own filters, then we pass on. So it's alive and new and continually evolving. Yes.
Yeah, it sounded like you were getting ready to wrap it up, but so I was curious about the sun and moon symbols above the shoulders of the chariot driver.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sun and moon, right? Which they're like, these are also a repeating symbol that you see through Toro of the Spirit, which is very, it's like a Tao symbol in a way. Both the sun and the moon are contained together times two. And then if we put the overlay, the transparent overlay of the Tree of Life on the card, everything becomes even more illuminated. So we see that the sun and moon are appearing both together. Okay, so if you say the sun is male and the moon is female, that's one of the interpretations. We have both the sun and the moon happening on both sides of the supernal triangle, which is, or the cosmological triangle, which is, in a sense, our belief system about how the universe is formed or comes into being. So we have, in sphere number 2, we have the father energy. In sphere number 3, we have the mother energy. But when we look at this card, we see that those are combined. It's all combined. It all becomes one. We see, when we look at this, that the face of the charioteer is in sphere number 11, secret sphere number 11, dot. We see that the signature on the card is in sphere number 6, the place we want to live from. See if anything else leaves out. And then the alchemical symbols that look like the Masonic symbol at the bottom of the card is in sphere 10, the sphere of the sister. That is the place where we will walk this energy into the world in fire, water, air, and earth, and the diamond sun of our being. Yes.
And the stars going up the path of the priestess?
Oh, and the stars going up the path of the priestess. Exactly. Look, that's the priestess energy. By the way, that's on the path of the high priestess. The face is on the path of the high priestess with the energy of the priestess. And the stars that move up are the connecting process and power of understanding what we are seeking, which is, quote, I'm quoting myself from earlier, our spiritual origins, right? So once we understand where we came from, then we can understand who we are and where we're going, theoretically, which is what this card is about. As you said earlier, seeker, being a seeker. The card is about seeking.
One thing I wonder about is there's the four stars. We're dealing with the 7. Does the chariot and then the whole chariot, including the charioteer and the 2 sphinxes, then make up the 7? There's 4 actual stars and then 3.
That's good, because then we're back to 4 plus 3.
Right.
So what's the 7?
Yeah.
3 plus 4.
I know, that's what made me think about it. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And look, there are 3 representations on each pillar. Yeah, but that's yeah, okay. And so what's most important, because even though all the cards are painted on the diagram of the Tree of Life, but they're full of abstractions. And the reason that that each card is full of abstractions is so that things leap out at you that you have never seen, and that is all going to be based on your own psychological state in the moment, and that's what takes us into that psychic mode. Like today, for the very first time, when I looked at that card, I've seen this card thousands of times, countless thousands of times, right? I never noticed the secret writing there that just all completely leapt out at me today, right? So when you look at the cards, you need to trust what you're seeing. And sometimes I believe that these cards actually change, that they're like shapeshifters. Yeah. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's anything else that I wanted to mention about that. Okay. Yeah. I think we're really, I think we've really moved through most of what I can tell you about the chariot. The colors associated with the chariot that are suggested for meditation are amber, maroon, bright rust, and dark greenish brown. The one that I have really connected with on that is amber, which seems so strange to me because amber is like it's a substance, a sap, right, that preserves something from the past. And that also reminds me of the essence and the energy of the Chariot. D sharp is the letter. It's not a letter. D sharp is the note, the musical tone connected with the Chariot. And I have my bowl, the Tibetan bowl that I frequently use, has like a D sharp tone, a D or a D sharp. I don't know, I don't want to. Okay, one way you can enter into the essence and energy of the Chariot or of any of the cards is to take the musical note and then also to imagine the color. So to meditate on that sound and that color together. So if we imagine amber and then like and just keep that going for a while. It can take us very deep into that space. Okay, just in case anyone is listening to this and they're driving in the car, we're not going to do that right now. But I promise you it will take you very deep into the place. And I'd like to end today by saying that our purpose in working with the Chariot would be to attain familiarity, we could say, with the cosmic sea and everything that is in the cosmic sea. And I'd like to end by reading the invitation out of Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, or the affirmations surrounding the Chariot. Let me find it, we're close. The quest to move inside the Chariot. The Chariot. May consciousness be the vehicle that carries me to my true nature. My true nature is anima cosma, the soul of the cosmos. My true nature is love. May I be guided by love. May I be nurtured on my path. May love flow into me. May it permeate my being. May love flow out of me, permeating the world. May I remove all obstacles to the full expression of love. The path of soul is love. Love is the soul's expression. Life is my vehicle. Consciousness is my vehicle. May I enter cosmic alignment. May I pursue the path of wisdom. May I pursue the path of love. May I open to receive the key of the Chariot. I haven't been talking about love and talking about the Chariot, but the conclusion that I personally have come to after so many years of meditation and work with these energies is that love is a key and a path worth pursuing. And when we move into that place of love, it becomes like a glue that binds the universe. It takes us out of the place of fear. It takes us out of the place of suffering. It takes us out of the place of spiritual crises and the broken heart and illness. When we truly love, we could be terminally ill and still be in a place of health and beauty. Love is the essence of walking the beauty way. And that is the essence of the sixes and the place that we want to live from ultimately. So that is why in the very end, I am bringing in love, which, yes, it's a choice. Yes, it's a value. And I think it's a place worth, for me, it is a place that I've discovered that is very much worth turning my attention toward in this, our world today and in our lives today, which seem so fragmented. Love, the heart, unites what the mind, being so analytical, the intellect can divide. So, and I do understand that the divisions are created to give us a sense of security, but what happens is it winds up backfiring on itself and creates more insecurity, more fear, more sense of alonement, and being divided. All right, so we will end there on the Chariot, and we will reconvene later as we move into the path of strength.